Hello, my name is Rachel and I am a knitter, I am a crocheter, a mom, a teacher, a wife, and today I just wanted to sit and knit and chat about some of the acquisitions I have as well as some of my future plans and my current whips. So I don't want to make this a super long video, but I'm hoping just to share out what I've been experiencing so far and then go from there. So a couple quick things just to follow up on. I am about to start the school year and I have spent some quality time with myself sitting and thinking and planning how am I going to ensure that I am successful in my teaching responsibilities while also maintaining my self-care. Knitting and crochet have been a lifeline for me. It's been giving me an opportunity to express some of my frustrations, process some of the thoughts I've had about various things that are happening in the world, in this country, in my home. And so because of the therapeutic side of the automatic hand movements that I'm used to doing, I really have become very attached to my projects. And so now that I'm going to be out of the house more frequently, I had to sit down with myself and figure out a schedule. And so I've always been a big fan of journaling. I have when you're an educator, you got to be a planner. And I started being a planner when I was in 7th grade. So I'm all about that life. So here's an example of some knitting plans that I had back in April of 2021. So with that said, I wrote out a little details for myself, and it's literally called Back to School and the things I'm planning to do and to work on. So for myself, I'm just going to read to you from my notes. For myself, I'm still working on a couple of things. So my works in progress is the great what is it called? Oh my gosh. Oh, the home cardigan. This is by Kadri, and this particular cardigan calls for a DK weight yarn. You depending on your size, you'll use anywhere between 1,000 to almost 1,400 yards of yarn. It's a really simple pattern. You start with the back, and then once the back is at a certain point, you then cast on for the front, and then once you have that on, then you join in the body and you just knit until you're at that desired length. You do your hem, pick up the stitches for the shoulder, and bam, you're done. So it's a super easy knit. And last weekend, I just sat down and I plugged away at it, and I actually made a lot of progress. So when I initially was working on it, I wasn't really interested because it's just straight stockinette, and I wasn't really engaged with it. But this is the progress I've made so far. As you can see, that was the inside of it. Here we go. And so I'm working on the sleeve, and I'm alternating between working on the sleeve and doing the hem. And I'm going to do the same thing once I finish with the hem and I start picking up stitches for the collar, because this particular pattern calls for a pickup stitch for the button band, and it only has 3 buttons, and so I'm going to do that, and it will allow the V-neck to really be highlighted. And initially I was going to do the Good Grandpa cardigan by Kadri, but I couldn't find the right yarn in the same colorway and that had the same feel as this particular yarn. The yarn that I'm using for this is called Lamana Perla. It's about 60% cotton, 25% alpaca, and 15% silk. It's a beautiful yarn. This colorway is 11. It's this deep navy blue, super soft and squishy. It's a DK weight yarn. It's about 115 meters, and for every 50 grams, ball. And I've already knitted the pockets. I blocked them, and now I have them laying flat, and so I think it might be a little easier for me to seam them onto the cardigan. This particular pattern doesn't call for pockets, but again, the person I'm making this for wanted pockets, so I'm going to add it on there. And the fact that I have both patterns, I'm just going to follow the directions for the Good Grandpa and just make the appropriate adjustments, and I think so far so good. So the sleeve is coming along pretty nicely. It looks like it's more of a set-in sleeve than drop shoulder. I tried it on myself and it looks really great. She's much shorter than I am, so the length is perfect. And actually this fits at my waist, and I'm telling you, if she doesn't like it, I am keeping it. I've been falling in love with navy blue. I've been using that color pretty frequently in my patterns, so I'm enjoying this. This is working up, and I hope to have this finished by the end of the month. And when I say finish, I mean like super finished, like have all my all my ends woven in, and just be done with it, because that has been a labor of love. I've been working on that particular project since it goes all the way back to May, and that's because she and I were discussing like what type of yarn, and an initial yarn that I had called for to use, it didn't work out, and then we sampled multiple things, and we finally picked out a yarn, we finally picked out a pattern, and I'm so excited to give this to my friend. She has been one of my closest friends since I was 19 years old, and so I'm really glad to have finally given her this gift of a garment. So that's my priority whip. My second priority whip that I'm working on is a crochet blanket. It's called the Brattenberg blanket. And this lovely thing has been traveling with me because Wednesdays and Sundays are my crochet days. Those are the days where I try to do at least an hour of crochet, because knitting has taken over so many parts of my life. I bring it with me to work, to when I'm sitting in traffic, when I am sitting and watching the same cartoon that my son wants to watch. So knitting comes with me everywhere, but crochet has not been given the same amount of love since I discovered knitting in 2021. So when I came across the Brattenberg blanket, I figured that this is excellent. And I have finished all of my colored squares. I actually sat down one night and laid them out, because I was just making more and more squares, and I'm like, do I already have enough squares for the length of the body that I want? Because I don't want this to be a big blanket. I really want it to be a nice throw. So I have all my colored squares. I actually laid them out really randomly and rearranged them. And I tried to do so by the shape of the square, because this is a mix of fingering, DK, and worsted weight yarn. And to adjust for that, I just switched my crochet hook. And so for my fingering, I used what the pattern called for, which is, I think it's a 3.25. And for my for my worsted weight yarn, I used a 2.75 crochet hook, and I was really pleased. It isn't the same amount of stitches, or I don't even know what it's called. We'll just say stitches. But it's not the same amount of stitches, but it's the same length and width. And so because I am more knowledgeable about crochet, I know how to finagle it where it's going to still have that beautiful flat look, because I already did a couple of practice and I liked it. The reason why I haven't started to put the blanket together, because I've been going back and forth with myself about what is going to be my joining color. Because the pattern, she used a neutral, beautiful cream color. And I have several skeins of yarn that's a cream color and worsted weight. But for some reason, I'm not gravitating towards that particular yarn. I don't like the texture of it. It's the Lion Brand Woolies. And I have a love-hate relationship with that yarn. I love the price point of it. It's made up of 80% acrylic and 20% wool, and it's not the high quality wool that they use in yarn. That's what probably makes it a little bit more affordable, but the colors are amazing, and they're great and the yarn is really great for like gift knits. And I have like a beautiful powder pink, a gray, and a linen color. And so with those three different yarns, I had hoped to put this into the Brattenberg blanket. And what I love about the wool ease yarn is that it does take really, really well with fabric softener. So like, for example, I did a swatch a couple of months ago just to test this out, and I soaked it in fabric softener for about 15, maybe 20 minutes at the most, and it was just as soft and plush as a more expensive yarn. So it has like a little rustic feel to it, but I don't want my blanket to feel rustic. I want it to feel soft and squishy and cuddly, because it's going on my legs on those nights where I'm chilly but I'm not cold. So anywho, I decided not to do that particular ball of yarn. So then it was back to square one. And then I remembered that I purchased 2 skeins of the Cascade, it's called Cascade Heritage Wave. And I initially purchased this for my Tessellated vest / pullover. And it just didn't come out the way I wanted to. I love the yarn. It is definitely not the yarn. The colorway is beautiful. It's so soft and it works really nicely. I love the stitch definition with this. It's not splitty, and I crocheted and knitted with this yarn just to get a feel, to familiarize, I should say, myself with it, and I was very happy with it. And so right now I'm in this little crossroads. Do I want to use that yarn, or do I want to use the 3 skeins of yarn I purchased from Webs? I had a day for myself. I wasn't feeling quite right, and so I took my kids to school. I already made up an amazing sub plan for my students. Most of my students were out because they were taking their AP test, so I really wasn't needed to be in the building, and I just knew I wasn't in the right headspace to interact with my students to the best of my ability. So I took the day and I decided to drive up to, and it is up because it's in further northwest from my house. I went to Webb's, and it is an amazing yarn store. If you are ever in the area of Massachusetts, in that particular area, I would highly recommend just doing a little day trip there. It is such a beautiful store. It's almost like a yarn warehouse. It is a yarn warehouse. You go in, you're greeted. They have the traditional things that's always in the little smaller yarn stores, but it's just so much more spread out, and it just gives you a little bit more opportunity to sit and think and plan what you're doing. And they have patterns all over the store with samples, either knitted or crocheted up, to kind of give you an idea of how the yarn works. They have plenty of notions and other materials that you're going to need in order to knit or crochet. And then once you come out of the main part of the store and you continue to go back, is where you come across the warehouse, and it's just rows and rows, or it felt like it, but it was just a few aisles of just beautiful yarn that is really well priced, that you can actually touch and get a feel for. And they have a table in that particular space we can sit with these yarns to really sit and think about, like, do you want to purchase this yarn? Is this a yarn you really are looking for in order to successfully make the garment or blanket, etc., that you're hoping to make? So anyway, after exploring the store and making my decision about yarn, because once again, I bought a sweater quantity of yarn for 2 patterns that I have been spending the last year debating with myself about when and how I'm going to do it, that I still have not cast on. But anyway, I saw this, it wasn't caked up like this, but I saw this yarn. It's called Koigu. I might be saying this wrong. Koigu. This is a yarn company that this is 100% merino wool. It's about 175 yards in each little hank. You get for 50 grams, and it's a fingering weight yarn, and I really like it. The texture is really great. It has multiple color variations in it, and I've had so many different plans for this. I had planned to use it for a striped cardigan I was going to do earlier in the summer, which I ended up scrapping that project. Then I was going to use the yarn in my bumpy cardigan when that came out, because that's what I was waiting for. That's why I was going to do the striped cardigan. So I was waiting for the bumpy to come out, but the bumpy came out, and I was like, I don't want to use this yarn because I want to use this yarn. And so I took it out of the project bag for that. And then I was going to use it for something else. I can't remember. I had set it aside for that, and it still wasn't there. So I put it back on my stash little cubbies, and then I came back to it and realized that with all the colors in my little squares, let me just bring this back up, there's a lot of similarities between the two. So I thought this would be a good join as you go squares. And it's not exactly what the pattern calls for, but I'm not a big fan of doing exactly what you see in a pattern. So I might do this and the Cascade Heritage. I just haven't decided yet. But whatever it is I decide, those 4 skeins of yarn will be used. So I've been working on this for almost a month now, and I had a day in the city with my sons, and I had picked up this little plastic, I really want to say it's a makeup case, and I found it at the store called Five Below. It's this little chain store here in Massachusetts. I'm sure they're in other places too. And I saw it and I was like, oh, this is like perfect for when you're at the beach or the pool with your kids and you don't want your smaller projects. And I had my socks in here for one of the projects I was working on, and it was fine. So anytime I'm on the go, I will pick a couple of little balls of yarn and put that in there with my crochet hooks and just go with it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've made such rapid progress with this. Plus, I'm a faster crocheter than I am a knitter. That it is what it is. I still haven't even decided what technique I'm going to use, if I want to use continental or if I want to flick, because I was a thrower and then I learned how to flick. And so unless my thumb and my wrist is hurting, then I don't flick as much and I end up throwing. So it really depends. So anyway, those are my two priority whips. But yesterday was September 1st, and it was cast on day for the Ready for Fall 2 with Joji Locatelli. She came out with 5 different patterns. That is a beautiful collection. And in addition to potentially doing one of those 5, you can also do any of her patterns. And she and her moderators have put together such a detailed oriented, engaging, interactive KAL that is in multi-facets. So if you didn't get a chance to fill out the Google form, there's still opportunities for you to participate and other aspects of the KAL, and they have these little mini challenges built into it. It's really great. I highly recommend, number one, either watching her she did like a live cast on party yesterday and she aired it on YouTube. So if you missed that, it's still available to watch. I would encourage you to check that out. She also posted information about the KAL on her Instagram. And then finally, there's details about the KAL on Ravelry as well. So if you joined her group, you'll be able to learn details about it. I can honestly say this is my first time ever doing a Joji Locatelli KAL before. I have knitted 3 of her patterns and enjoyed the experience each time because I always learn something new. And it's a good frustration. Like when I made the TT, I think it's called the T or T. I think it's called T pullover. It's TI pullover, and it's a totally dope construction, and I made it for one of my coworkers. But essentially you make one side of the garment, you start with the back, and then you pick up stitches, and then you come down to the front, you join at the body at the underarm, and you knit it the rest of it, and then you do the same thing on the other side, and you join it together with this cabling that you make, because as you're doing the back and the front, you do this half cable. And then you do the same thing on the other side, and then you join it together, and it's incredible. I have no idea how she came up with this. I've never seen any knitwear designer put something together like this, but it's such a well-constructed pattern, and it was one of the fastest knits I've ever done for a pullover before. Maybe because it didn't have a traditional collar. I did end up putting on a collar because just to kind of give it a little bit more shaping, and there's just plenty of room for modification. So I highly recommend checking out one of her patterns, because either you're going to learn something new, you're going to create something that you never thought you would ever do before, and the patterns are just actually pretty well written. It pushes you beyond your comfort zone as a knitter, depending on where you're at. So I still consider myself to be a beginner. I feel like I've graduated to advanced beginner because of some of the projects I have been successful in doing. But I think once I do my first color work sweater, I'm going to officially be an advanced beginner. But until that happens, I'm just a beginner. But anywho, I joined her knit along. I'm excited. I've decided for the knit along, I'm going to do the 1 week in socks, which I'm going to show you in a moment. I'm going to do another Tromso hat. It's Tromso hat. It's a really quick pattern. You're using Aran weight or worsted weight yarn, and you can hold it with mohair. And by doing that, and you're using either 5 or 6 millimeter knitting needles, and it works up so quick. Because when I purchased the pattern booklet, I read through it and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Let me just check it out. And next thing you know, I ended up finishing the hat within like 9 hours, and I've never done that before. So unless it was on my knitting machine. So highly recommend checking that out. But anywho, I'm going to do another one of the hats. I'm going to also do the instant crush. That's what turned me on to it. When I saw that, I was like, I am in love. I contacted Pick Up Every Stitch, and they were kind enough to help me pick out my colors. And the yarn that came just did not blend well to the colors, or did not have the what I was looking for. And I had thought I had purchased the Instant Crush kit when I first saw it, the pattern. and I got an email saying that my order was canceled. So I was like, oh, that's too bad. And I'm like, well, you know, I have my yarn from Pick Up Every Stitch. I'll just try to make it work. And I was like playing around with it. Then I got another email saying that my order had shipped. So what most likely happened is that I probably ordered it twice, not realizing it, because, you know, sometimes things lag on the internet. So whatever was the mishap, I did pay for it in full. Just don't worry. I did not receive a free Magpie Fiber mohair kit for this particular item. So the Instant Crush mohair kit has arrived. It's in my possession. I have not caked up the yarn yet. It's actually still sitting in the same item. I'm actually going to leave it there. My hope is to do a swatch using some leftover mohair that I had lying around. This particular color is actually similar to what's in the pattern, but the other three are not. So my hope is to do a swatch using some of my leftover just to get a feel for the pattern, a feel for what my gauge might be, because so far I have consistently met gauge with her, with all the patterns I've done for her. So I'm pretty confident I can still do so. But this is my first time doing a pullover where I'm only using mohair. And I've never done that before. I've used mohair for hats only, and I've done it, and I'm lying. I did do it already. I used 2 strands and a mohair for a ranunculus that I made. There was a lace yarn that was attached to it, but it was mostly mohair. So really I'm excited about that. So as I was saying, I'm doing the 1 weekend socks. You can tell I get a little rambly. 1 weekend socks. I plan to do 2 pairs of those. Let me just go ahead and show you. I went to Pick Up Every Stitch. As you know, this is one of my favorite yarn stores that's in Mount Kapusky, I don't know, probably saying it wrong, in upstate New York. Absolutely love the store. And while I was there, Max and Vincent from Legons was there with their trunk show, and they had specially made several colorways for the shop owners, Karen and Felicia. And this is Karen's Pearl. And they actually have I believe it's Karen who has a dog's name, Pearl. But anywho, this colorway is beautiful. As you can see, it's this icy blue. Let me just try to get in a little closer. And this was about 273 yards of yarn, BFL. And they made the colorway of mohair too. And this is a little over 400 yards of yarn. And it's working out really quickly. The 1 weekend socks, as the name calls for. So my goal is to make 2 of these. I have plenty of DK yarn. I'm actually thinking of casting on a second pair with this particular yarn, but without the mohair, because I don't have any mohair in this color. I've looked around and I have a couple things that can potentially be used, and so we'll see. But I think this is going to be my second one, and I also have some bicycle yarn that I can use as well. But my bicycle yarn that I got from Stephen and Penelope, that's in fingering weight, so that's not what the pattern calls for, and I'm trying to follow directions. I want to be better at giving directions, and I want to be better at following directions. So I am working on, it's sitting over here, that's why I keep pointing to it. So I am working on this. I really am enjoying the pattern. I am not the best lace knitter. I don't know why. I second guess myself every time I do any form of lace work, and I have done it a few times now as a knitter, but dude, I definitely in my feelings sometimes when I doing it. And cables, I could do that with no problem. But lace knitting and knitting, we have some issues. We don't get along as well. But it's the same thing with crochet. I struggle with doing cables and crochet for some reason. But that's another story for another day. But anywho, I am working diligently on this particular pattern, and today is day 2 of me working on these socks. And so you have to do either the Turkish cast on, or you can do the Judy's Magic cast on, because it's a toe up sock. And so after you do that, you then just continue to work it up until the desired length. And then once you get to your desired length, then you go ahead and do the leg, and then you do the cuff, and then you're done. And because I know that I have several other projects I need to work on, I decided to do 2 at a time, because I just could not see myself, I could not see myself casting on a second pair to do the second pair. And the video that I was watching for the Turkish cast on, the woman was doing 2 at a time. And so I was like, why don't I just do these socks 2 at a time? And I'm always a little slow in the beginning, but then once I get my rhythm, I pick up and I'm working at almost the same pace as I would be if I was doing it one at a time. So I'm happy with that. I plan to do, hopefully I can cast on my second pair of the one weekend socks either next weekend or the weekend after that. I'm hoping to be done with with all sock knitting for my fall sock knitting by October, because I want to have some socks I want to give away for the holidays. And in addition to doing those two particular projects in the Instant Crush, I'm also going to do the Cloud Peak cardigan. Now, I've been going back and forth with myself about this particular cardigan. I don't have a cardigan that I've made myself since last year, and I want to make at least 2 if not 3 cardigans for myself. My wardrobe is in desperate need of it. My store-bought cardigans all have holes either in the shoulders or on the sides or even a button band, and I just need to let them go because I don't buy clothes very frequently, and some of the cardigans I have in my closet I've had for 15 years. So it's time to upgrade. So I plan on making myself the champagne cardigan in like this slate gray. It's closer to black than it is to gray. It's a Cascade 220 yarn, and I'm really excited about, oh no, I'm using the Barocco one, I think. But anywho, I'm really excited about that because I need another black cardigan, because the one I made last year, it's, or last October, I should say, it's more cropped. It falls right at my waistline, and it's a 3/4, so it's perfect for the fall, but it's definitely not a winter cardigan, and I'm really looking for a winter cardigan in my wardrobe. So I'm hoping the Cloud Peak will be that winter cardigan. And I have a variety of different weight 4 yarn like behind me. That is a Barocco Ultra Alpaca in natural. And I love the yarn. It has the great squish factor, but for some reason, I can't see myself wearing it as a cardigan anymore. And I actually bought a yarn dye kit in order to dye the yarn. And when I'm going to do that, I don't know. But I have no plans for that yarn, and I feel bad because it's such a beautiful yarn, but I'm not feeling inspired by it. I have another yarn, the Plymouth, it's a superwash yarn, and it's 100% merino superwash, really beautiful yarn. You can see it over there a little bit. It's really beautiful yarn, but again, I'm in that situation where I purchased it for one pattern and I just really want to use it for that, and that's most likely what's going to happen. And then with the other worsted weight yarns I have, I either don't have that enough in the sweater quantity, or it has too much acrylic in it where I'm afraid I'm going to have that same issue where it's too plasticky because I've washed it too many times, or it just is starting to wear out. And I've noticed that some of my acrylic garments that I made, that they're wearing out a little bit faster than my knit woolly ones. So I then had planned to do, let me bring this over. Now this yarn has been in my acquisition for almost 2 years now. Yeah, it's almost 2 years. I purchased this from a yarn store in Beverly, Massachusetts. It's called Yarns in a Farm. It's such a cute little store that's full to the rim with beautiful luxury yarn that's at a really great price point, and a variety of different colors. The shop owner is a really nice woman, and met her, and she helped me with several instances in finding yarn to meet my project needs. And when I had purchased this yarn, I had planned to make it with the Copenhagen, to make the Copenhagen sweater, which calls for a fingering weight yarn held with a mohair, which makes like a DK weight yarn. Excuse me, which makes fingering with mohair, which makes a DK. I was right. You were right, Rachel. But for some odd reason, I felt that my gauge was more worsted weight, and I wanted just to go ahead and get worsted weight and then knit it. I forgot what my logic was, but I had a plan. You know, when you go into these projects, you have a plan. So I thought I had a plan, right? Went into the store, told her my plan, and she was like, all right. And so I found this color, and I'm still in love with the color. It's not the color, so which is great. The color is great. The yarn is actually wonderfully soft. Like the more I touch it, the more I'm like, oh, this is a lot softer than I thought. Because at the time when I purchased this, I was used to more of those acrylic yarns, which tend to be softer before they're worked up and washed. And this, I just know is going to definitely hold the ground. So this is Blue Sky Fibers wool stock. This is worsted weight. You get about 123 yards for every 50 gram hank, and the color is Wild Thyme. And I have a sweater quantity of this. I have the large size, so I think it's about either 1,100 yards of yarn I have, because at a Yarns in the Farm, she had the 150 gram cake as well. So I bought 2 of the 150 gram, and then the rest of it was in this. So with this beautiful yarn that has been sitting caked in that plastic bag, except for that last hank, I have been debating with myself so many times about what yarn I'm going to use with it, what pattern I'm going to knit with it. And I had thought about doing so many, and I'm not going to even waste your time listing them. So I had picked this for the Cloud Peak. Totally on board about doing this. I don't have any sweaters that are green. I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone. I wear so many dark colors, and I cannot deny the fact that bright colors look really great on my skin tone. And so I'm like, you know what? This green looks so nice on me. Why am I holding off on this? I have wore something similar in this, and I love the way I looked. So I second guessed myself. My job allows for a lot of casual dress. I can make this beautiful cardigan with a fun t-shirt and my knee boots and my jeans, and I would be cute. The problem is, there's this thing called the internet and these online stores that call you and say, buy me. And that's what happened this morning. I have plenty of yarn for the Cloud Peak, but I was like, no, that yarn just won't do. I don't know how I convinced myself of this, but this is what I told myself in my head, that this yarn, this Blue Sky Fiber luxury yarn will not do. And I have to buy new yarn. So I went on to my favorite online store, Wool & Company, as others too. Don't get me wrong. I was looking at everybody. And so I went on to Wool & Company, and I was like, well, I was just going to say Blue Sky is in a different color. Maybe they have it in this blush pink. I want a blush pink sweater. I am making a blush pink sweater. Why do I want it as a cardigan? I don't know. I haven't even finished the pullover yet. I'm making sweater 19, and it's called Clay Rose, but it's more of a blush pink. And I've been working on this for almost a year now as well. Almost a year. It'll be a year in a couple of weeks, actually. But anywho, I've been working on that particular pattern, and once I finish it, I'm going to love it. But I'm like, maybe I should just make a cardigan. Like, I did this whole thing with myself, just talking myself into buying yarn. And I ended up purchasing a non-blush pink, and the yarn I even purchased isn't even blush pink. So I don't know what I was thinking. So I don't know what I'm going to end up doing with this yarn. I have another pattern that I purchased that's made by Joji Locatelli, that's called the Solaire. I think that's what it's called. Kim from Knitting with Kim and Jonna made that particular pullover. I'm sorry, I'm just looking it up on my computer, and I loved it. It looks so beautiful. And she made it with Mayak yarn. And then Mayak is a birthday or a Christmas yarn, I woke up this morning and I just wanted to buy yarn. And so because it's a little bit out of my price point, I decided to hold off on purchasing a sweater quantity of it. And I went onto Wool & Company. I'm just pulling it up on my computer one day. Let's see. I bought the Fiber Company, and I love the Fiber Company. I don't have any more over there, but I've used their yarn twice for hats, and I had such a wonderful knitting experience with it. So I wanted to knit a sweater with it, and I got it in my favorite color. It's like this dove grayish color, and I have plenty of mohair to go with it. And when it gets here, we'll see what I'll end up making with it. I might make the Solaire, which again, I feel so sorry if I am saying it wrong. It's Solare. My spelling is awesome, y'all. So I'm either going to make that, or I might make the Petite Knit storm sweater. I plan to make that as a summer pullover sweater. So because we have these weird days where it can drop down to the 60s, like on Wednesday, it was like almost 90 degrees or something. I don't know. One day this past week, it was like in the 90s, almost in the 90s. Then the next day it was down to the 60s. Like I had to put the heated seats on in my car because it was chilly, but not chilly enough to put on the heat. But anywho, since we have those fluctuating temperatures right now in this particular part of the season, I wanted to make that pullover for the days where I'm feeling a little chilly. I can just pull it over, and then when I get warm, I can whip it off and just wear the garment underneath that I have on. So I don't know if I'm still going to do that or if I'm going to use it for what, but I just bought a sweater quantity of it. So I'm going to have about 1,200 yards of yarn to use for something. Initially, I had planned on using it for the Cloud Peak, but after reconnecting with this yarn again, I'm like, why would I not use this for the Cloud Peak? It's going to make the yarn pop off so much, and it's such a has a nice halo to it already. It doesn't even need mohair, and I have mohair to go with it that I purchased from Pick Up Every Stitch as well. So I need to just stay off the internet. I have been buying way too much yarn, which brings me into acquisitions. So you've heard all the works in progress I have going on. You just heard a very long-winded overview about a project that I'm going to start, which is the Cloud Peak. Those are the 4 items I'm going to knit for the knit along. I might do the scoop. I've had this in my queue for a minute now. I have the yarn for it. It looks like it's a pretty easy knit to do. And what I'm excited about that particular sweater is stripes. And I love me some stripes. So the scoop is all ready. Cloud Peak is ready. So those are the 2 additional items I hope to make for Joji Locatelli's Ready for Fall 2 knit along. I had told myself for the last 4 weeks that I need to stop buying yarn. And the reason why is that I'm buying yarn that I don't know what I'm going to use it for. And it's just sitting and it's accumulating dust and space that is unnecessary. I have enough yarn in this room that will take me about 4 years to actually engage in knitting and crocheting the yarn for its intended purposes. That at the time when I purchased it, that was what I was supposed to do with it. I need to stop. I need to take a moment and to really enjoy my yarn. I am going to buy yarn in October because I'm going to 2 fiber festivals. And I'm hoping that I'm only going to buy yarn to make some socks. I'm really enjoying sock knitting. It's been such a wonderful experience. And if I can't find something that is really good for a sock, then maybe find something that's really good for a hat. But my goal is not to buy any sweater quantity of yarn while I'm at these 2 fiber festivals. The great thing is I'm bringing one of my closest friends with me to the first fiber festival I'm going to. And if there's anyone who can hold me accountable, it is her. She will give me a look. She doesn't even have to say words. Marisa is that type of person who can just look at you and you're like, yeah, all right, you're right, you're right. And that's it. So she's my person. So we're going to Prince Edward Island in October, and she's going to hold me accountable. She knows she has to do that. And then the second fiber festival, I'm hoping to go with some of my coworkers from work. We've been talking about it since last summer. So I think we're still going to go regardless if they're coming or not. I'm going. I know I'm still going to Rhinebeck just for Sunday. As I said before, not really a big fan of going on Saturday and just dealing with the big rush of people. I'd rather just go where I can actually take my time and walk and think. I'm one of those people that when I'm in a yarn store, I need to just stand and stare at the yarn and let my ideas just process. So with that said, I know this about myself. I've been buying too much yarn. I need to slow down with it. And yet I purchased the pattern Zig by Andrea Mowry actually when it came out. So whatever was the release date for that was when I purchased the pattern. It is such a unique pattern. I don't know what it is that makes me gravitate towards it, but I am. It's a worsted weight. It calls for a worsted weight yarn, and it's made bottom up. You do the hem, and then you do this beautiful zigzag pattern where it goes and then it's just straight up stockinette, and it's more of a boat neck collar, which I like because I can wear some of my new collared shirts that I purchased, and I think it would be a great sweater to wear with jeans and when you need to like class it up a little bit but not overclass it. It's a perfect business casual sweater. I'm in love with it. So I had purchased a pattern. I had planned to only use the yarn that's in my stash, and 2 times I had found the yarn in my stash to use, and for whatever reason couldn't cast it on because I kept coming back to this sweater kit. Well, the sweater kit came available and I purchased it 2 days ago. And not 2 days ago, about 7 days ago, and it came. So this is it. These are the colors. Oh, I'm in love. I don't know. I don't do these colors very often. I'll put myself in there. I don't do these colors very often. I've always done gray and black. Occasionally I do a pop of color, but I'm more, and I will do red. I finally learned how to I gained some confidence with red. But this is a Bishi Buchu. My French sucks. Oh no, this is a made in UK, so I don't know. Anywho, this is lamb's wool. It's 100% lamb's wool. It's made in UK. It's about 185 yards, light worsted weight. It calls for 4mm to 4.5mm knitting needles, which is a US 6 and 7. You should hand wash it and dry it flat. And I just love these colorways, and I've seen this yarn before and I haven't found the courage to purchase it because it doesn't feel initially soft, but I've heard so many great things about this yarn. And I'm like, if I'm going to purchase it, I want to purchase it for the zig pattern, and I want to use this particular kit because I love how all 3 of these colors go together, and it has a little bit of my gray flair, but it has some brightness to it too. And I think it would be just a perfect late fall, winter, like cold winter sweater. So I'm so excited for this. I'm hoping to cast this on in October. I have so many other projects that I need to cast on for. I need to cast on my son's zipper sweater. I still need to do that. I was hoping to have it finished by his birthday, and that way he can have it, but I haven't even touched it yet. And what else? I still need to cast on both my sons, actually, their zipper sweater. My 19-year-old, I don't know if he wants one or not. He's still in the hoodie sweatpants phase, pajama pants if I'm being truthful. So, and he always runs hot. So I don't know if a sweater is his jam. He probably would rather me give him money for his car for Christmas. And then my husband, I had planned on making him one. I actually bought the yarn for it a couple weeks ago. And now I'm second guessing myself about whether or not to make it for him because he really likes hats. He loves all the hats I made him, and he always asks me for a hat. And all the hats that I make for myself ends up going into his area of the house. So I don't know. I'm back and forth about it. So I need to make all those zipper sweaters. On top of, I have a couple cardigans that are just sitting in my queue that I've been looking at and saying, oh, I have a couple pullovers that I have been telling myself, you're going to make these. They're color work. It's just this large variety that I all need, that they're calling me to do, I should say. Then I keep buying new yarn that I'm looking at, and I'm like, I want to make something with you, but I don't know what, but I want to make something. And I'm staring at it with this lust. There's no other way to describe it. So I am in this a little bit of a conundrum, on top of the fact that I'm also making not one, but 2 gift knits. I'm making the cardigan for my best friend, but I'm also making the Great Love cardigan for one of my friends. And me and that cardigan, we've had some fights. We are on a break and we are going to come back together hopefully next week. I hope to pick it up and start knitting on it next week. If I can finish Lou's cardigan, then I have no other choice but to focus on that. But that's where I'm at with my plans, my works in progress, my future plans, and my acquisitions. I am sincerely hoping I do not acquire any more yarn after the month of October. I literally just remembered like 4 days ago that I had signed up for a Magpie Fiber Avant, I think it's called Avant, excuse me. And so that's going to start coming in the mail. And I'm hoping by getting those monthly subscriptions in the mail that will help deter me from buying yarn, because for me it's also about the package. Like when I saw this package in my mailbox, y'all, you should have seen my face. You would have thought like it was $1 million that came in my mailbox. I get so excited when new orders of yarn come in, and I just want to sit and like go at it. And my hands have been taking a beating from all the knitting and crocheting that I've been doing. So I have to take a break. So this was me taking a break and filming myself and just sharing with you some of my whips, some of my work, not works in progress, because that's what I whip. Some of my works in progress and some of my future plans. And hopefully all of you are feeling super jazzed about this fall season of knitting. The summer has been incredible with all the different summer knit patterns that came out. I am that person who's going to knit her summer stuff in a winter and then her winter stuff in the summer. I have to be different. I have to be the complete opposite. So this December and January, I'm really hoping to cast on all the summer knits, so that way when the summer comes, I can actually wear them, not work on them, and work on more socks. Oh God, I love knitting socks. They have been so much fun. But if I can't gush about that anymore. But one more thing I just wanted to briefly chat with you about are these little tins. So when I bought the Chagu Forte knitting needles, let me just take a moment. Okay. I'm in love with these knitting needles. I can actually knit for 2 hours without any issue because of those knitting needles. But when I use the steel ones or any other, or just solid wood, and there's no steel tip, my thumb starts hurting, my wrist starts hurting. But something about those knitting needles, I don't know if it's because of the cord or it's because of the steel tip or because, I don't know. I just have such a better experience knitting with these knitting needles, and they have been worth every dollar spent. I have exclusively been using those. The only time I deviate is when when I have to do my shorties. They don't make those in shorties, or when when they're already been on other knitting needles and I have to use one of my other Chagu. But for the most part, I absolutely love them and highly recommend if they come out again for you to purchase. They're worth it. So anyway, when I got them, they had this little knitting notions thing. I was like, oh my God, that's so cute. And I put all the little notions that came in the I don't know, notebook, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, all the stuff that came in there, I put it in a notions tin, and I loved it. And it was like, oh, this is so great. And I realized that I wish I had this where my other projects, because for me, I'm the type of knitter or crocheter even, that I take these little pouches that I have around my house or that my children no longer use for school, and I put all of the things I need for it. If I don't have a pouch available, I am quick to get one of their used sandwich bags. I rent it out. And I'll put just like my knitting needles, like the little notions I use for my knitting needles, my tapestry needle, the stitch markers, stitch holders, all of it. I will put all of that in the little plastic bag or pouch, and I have multiple project bags. I even have my little scissors or snips in there as well, and I put them with every single project bag. So when I pick up a project bag, I don't have to like find a notions pouch, is what I basically call it. But I'm like, with the plastic bags, unfortunately they get holes in it, and with the pouches sometimes they're either just too big or they're in use, and I want to like minimize my size. So I went on to Amazon and I saw that they had these sorry, let me stop playing with it. They had these little tin containers, and you could get 6 for like $5. And I was like, that's it? So I purchased it, and then I realized it's a perfect thing to use for all the stickers. You know how when you buy yarn or you go to a yarn store and they're always giving you a sticker? I never know what to do with the sticker. And so I'm like, oh, I'll just put it on my little knitting tan. And so, sorry, the Georgia came out. That's where I lived a long chunk of my life. So it will come out every once in a while. So in my little tin, my scissors are there, and this particular tin was used for a cable. Oh no, because I'm using it for my Joji Locatelli's Cloud Peak sweater. So I use this little ring with the little, I use this for my cabling. I found that it's much easier for me. We all have our little little tricks that we do. I have my little bells, and I have my little progress keeper. Now that I know that this is a progress keeper, because I didn't know for a very long time. I even have my little tightener thingy. Again, didn't know what that was for. And I was like, why is this always in these interchangeable kits? Yeah, I'm a little special sometimes. So anywho, I love this. I highly recommend you check that out. It's really, and I'm not sponsored or paid for or anything like that. I just thought that was so cool. It has made my knitting experience a little easier, that it's large enough where it can actually fit my scissors and all the little notions I need in order to successfully knit. Even my little tracker, this is what I use to keep gauge. Usually I have it on my finger, but I don't know, today I don't. So yes, that's one final thing I wanted to share with you. I truly hope that you are all enjoying yourself, and that this was helpful to you to hear. I know it was helpful for me to share, so yay for me. I am going to sit back, relax, and continue to work on these beautiful socks that I cannot wait for the winter time so I can like shuffle around the house with them. And I have big feet, so for those of you who are like, oh, those look big, I'm a size 11. And one foot is bigger than the other, and has been since I've had my firstborn child. And so I leave you with that. I hope that you have a wonderful knitting or crocheting or whatever craft that is bringing you joy. I hope you continue to take time for yourself and enjoy this beautiful late transition weather that we've been having from the summer to the fall. And don't rush the fall. Let's try to enjoy a little bit more of the sunshine, because we're the first ones to complain when it's all gray and dreary out, except for those of us who knit and crochet who want to hibernate inside. Have a wonderful day, and thank you